Let's start this deep dive with, well, maybe an image that feels maybe a bit too familiar for some of us.
Okay.
Picture this. You're having a really rough day. Could be metaphorical, could be literal rain, you know. You're soaked, you're tired. Maybe your heart just feels heavy.
I know that feeling.
Right. And anyone really,
Yeah.
asks, how are you doing? And almost like a reflex, out comes this kind of forced smile. And you hear yourself saying the words, I'm fine.
Ah, yes, I am fine. That phrase, it's it's such a powerful paradox in our modern lives, isn't it?
It really is.
We think we're wearing strength, fortitude, resilience, maybe, like it's some kind of protective armor.
Yeah, armor.
But the truth is, and this is often what we discover, sometimes much too late, is that this performance, this show of strength, it's actually kind of crushing us from the inside out.
It's a mask.
It absolutely is. A mask we just have to wear even when we're feeling, well, incredibly fragile underneath it all.
But why? Why is that mask so compelling?
Yeah.
Why does that instinct to armor up feel stronger than, the basic human need to just say, actually, I need some help, or, wow, this is really hard right now?
That impulse, it comes from, well, a psychological mechanism we often call the ego.
The ego.
The ego is trying, often desperately, to maintain control, to keep a fixed identity. So it constructs this persona, this story, I'm the one who handles everything, right? Or I never fall apart. And it turns this image into a kind of fortress. And then we end up spending all our energy just defending those walls. And that process, that constant defense, it's a very subtle form of suffering. It's a misalignment with what's actually true in the moment.
A fortress should keep us safe, though. That's the idea. But you're saying the defending itself is the problem.
Precisely. That's the irony. The cost of keeping up that constant defense is intimacy.
Intimacy, how so?
Well, intimacy with other people, for sure. But also intimacy with ourselves, and even intimacy with reality as it is. Think about that old analogy. The warrior who never takes off his armor. Never. Not for eating, not for sleeping.
Right.
What happens? Eventually the metal starts to rust, right? It kind of fuses to his skin, his joints stiffen up. He forgets what it even feels like to be touched by warmth, or just the wind on his skin.
Wow.
His strength, the very thing he thought was protecting him, becomes his prison. It isolates him completely.
So the illusion we're all carrying around is that being vulnerable means failing, or that needing help makes us weak.
That's the core illusion, yes. It's actually the refusal to be vulnerable, the refusal to acknowledge our need, that creates the heaviest burden on our soul.
But hang on. I mean, isn't some armor necessary? Surely we can't just walk around, showing every single fear and insecurity to absolutely everyone we meet. That feels unsafe too.
That's a really important question. And you're right, there's a big difference between honest self-awareness, maybe sharing appropriately with trusted people, and just complete raw exposure to everyone. That's not the goal.
Okay. Because my fear is if I drop the armor, I'll just, completely fall apart, collapse.
And that worry is totally valid. It makes sense. But it often comes from a slight misunderstanding of what's going on inside.
Right.
We don't need to see that desire to hide, that armoring up, as some kind of enemy we have to violently attack or destroy.
Okay, so not fighting it.
No. The invitation is perhaps gentler, to see the ego, the part that builds the fortress, not as some malicious architect, but maybe as a frightened child.
A frightened child.
Yeah, exactly. A child who's just clinging desperately to an old survival strategy, something that maybe worked once but is now outdated.
So the strong persona isn't really strength. It's just this child trying to cope.
Precisely. That child learned a rule somewhere along the way, maybe very early on. If I show I'm scared, I'll be judged. Or perhaps if I cry, I'll be abandoned. So it built the mask. It called it being strong. Think about maybe a parent who feels completely overwhelmed. Work, life, everything piling up, and they snap at their kids. It's often not coming from a place of malice, is it?
No, usually guilt afterwards.
Right. It's often that frightened child inside, panicking, tightening the mask, because they just can't bring themselves to admit, even to themselves, I feel like I can't do this alone right now.
Oh, I feel that. I really do. That physical feeling.
Yeah.
The tightness in the chest, the throat kind of closing up, that immediate impulse to just hide the real feeling before you even fully recognize it yourself. We almost treat our own emotions like they're bugs in the system, like evidence that we're flawed somehow.
Yes, and yet they're not flaws at all. They're the system. They're the system's signals. It's messengers. And if we can just start to reframe them, they become incredibly valuable.
Messengers. Okay,
Yeah.
like what?
Well, think about grief. It's not weakness, is it? It's often just love. Love that doesn't have anywhere to go anymore.
That's beautiful.
Or anxiety, it feels awful, but it's not proof you're broken. It's usually the mind, your nervous system, trying its best to protect you from something it perceives as dangerous.
Even if the danger isn't real or it's exaggerated?
Exactly. And even that deep, driving need to appear strong, underneath that, there's often a real tenderness, a very human longing to be safe, to belong, to feel like you matter.
But what happens when we push those messengers away? When we actively hide them behind the mask? They don't just disappear, do they?
No, they absolutely do. They transform. Emotional suffering that's denied, that's hidden, it doesn't just vanish. It tends to seep into the body, maybe as chronic tension, headaches, stomach issues. Or it can harden in our personality. It might show up as a kind of deep cynicism or resentment that simmers under the surface, or even just numbness, a feeling of being cut off.
And that's the clinging you mentioned.
That's the clinging. Yes, we usually think of clinging in terms of, objects or maybe specific experiences, but this is clinging to an identity. The identity of the one who doesn't need anything, the one who's always fine.
And this identity is so common, especially now. You see it in leaders and those friends who are always super capable, in parents, the ones everyone leans on. They become the rock.
Ah, the rock. And often they are the most profoundly isolated people.
Really? Even surrounded by people.
Especially then, perhaps. They listen, they give advice, they hold space for everyone else's vulnerability, their struggles, but they never, ever ask for that same support in return. And this leads to this deep sense of isolation. It's like a cage of invisibility. They feel increasingly alone, not because people aren't physically there, but because nobody really sees them. Nobody sees the truth of what's going on inside.
Because they won't show it.
Because they won't take off the mask that would allow someone to truly meet them, to connect with their actual experience. They end up starved for genuine connection.
Okay, so if the problem is this clinging, this rigid identity, this armor, how do we even start to let it go? Especially without feeling like we're just going to crumble. Where does the practice begin?
It begins. And this might sound surprising, not with fixing anything, and not with collapsing either. It starts simply with witnessing.
Witnessing.
Yes. When that impulse comes up, I'm fine. When you feel that familiar tightness in your chest or throat, just pause. Just for a beat. Don't judge the feeling. Don't try to push it away immediately.
Okay.
Just breathe. Breathe into that space, that tightness. And maybe ask very gently inside yourself, what am I trying to protect right now? Who am I afraid I'll be if I let this feeling show, even just to myself?
That pause. That sounds like radical self-honesty.
It is. It's quiet. It's internal. It's the opposite of the kind of aggressive action we usually think we need to take when we feel fear or discomfort, isn't it?
Yeah, usually it's fight or flee, right?
Exactly. And fighting it would just be another way of fighting yourself. Think of it like this. Maybe use the river analogy.
Okay.
Our emotions, our feelings, they're like a river, always flowing, changing. Now, the frightened ego, that inner child, is terrified. The current will just sweep it away. So it frantically tries to build a dam to stop the flow.
Right. Makes sense.
Mindfulness, this practice of witnessing, isn't about grabbing dynamite and blowing up the dam. That would be terrifying, too.
Yeah.
It's more like sitting quietly on the riverbank, right beside that frightened child, and just reassuring them gently. It's okay. You can watch the river flow. You can even feel the current moving. And you will still be safe. You won't be swept away.
So the safety isn't in stopping the flow. It's in realizing you can be with the flow.
Precisely. That reframing is, well, it's the beginning of the alchemy of awareness. It's understanding that what we push away, what we resist, tends to stick around, it persists. But what we can honestly, gently embrace, that begins to transform.
But that takes courage.
It absolutely does. Real courage. The willingness to hold both things at once, your perceived strength and your apparent weakness, your fear. We have to be willing eventually to feel some of the pain we've worked so incredibly hard to avoid feeling.
And this completely flips the script on what we think resilience is. It's not about being unbreakable like that armor.
No, true resilience isn't rigidity at all.
No.
Flexibility. It's like a strong, healthy tree in a storm. It bends, it sways with the wind, but it doesn't snap. And that flexibility, that resilience, it starts with that quiet, honest whisper. Maybe first just to yourself in that pause, and then maybe eventually to one trusted person. You know what? This is harder than I thought, or simply, I'm scared.
That whisper. It feels like the first crack in the armor. The first breath of fresh air.
It is. It's the first breath of true freedom.
Yeah.
And that's the great reversal we're talking about.
The reversing.
The moment you stop performing strength, The moment you stop pretending, that's the moment you actually start to access a deeper, more real, more sustainable kind of strength.
So it comes from making peace with the fear, not from somehow conquering it or pretending it's not there.
Exactly. Making peace with it, being with it. And what's amazing is this kind of honesty, it's almost immediately contagious.
What do you mean?
When we allow ourselves to drop the mask, even just a little bit with someone safe, we instantly, without even trying, give them permission to do the same.
Oh.
And that deepens connection faster and more genuinely than any performance of competence ever could. Emotional honesty. That's actually how healing spreads. In relationships, in families, in communities.
So the armor doesn't just dramatically clank off one day.
No, usually not. It's more like it starts to loosen, it softens, maybe dissolves, like salt in warm water, through the warmth of your own attention, your own self-kindness. And underneath it, you discover the strength that was there all along. Not performance, but presence.
Presence, just being here as you
Just
are.
being here, now, exactly as you are. And that presence, it validates the truth that you're worthy, not because you're perfect or have it all together, but simply because you're human.
Fragile, changing.
Beautifully imperfect. And you gain permission to be soft sometimes, permission to not have all the answers, permission, crucially, to need others.
Permission feels huge.
It is. You know, the wisdom traditions often talk about suffering, dukkha, and liberation or presence, not as two completely separate destinations. They're more like the same reality, the same landscape, just seen through different eyes. When you see your vulnerability, your fear, your neediness as a fundamental failure, well, that's suffering, that's dukkha. But when you can begin to see it as an invitation towards deeper honesty, towards connection, towards self-compassion, then you start touching liberation. Right there, in the midst of the difficulty.
So the work isn't about finally getting rid of the mask forever and being fixed.
No, the deepest work continues. Every day. It's not really in that one big moment of revelation, but in the small daily choices. The choice to stay honest, even when it's uncomfortable. The path isn't about finding some final resolution where everything's perfect. It's about creating an ongoing relationship with whatever is present within you. Fear, strength, confusion, clarity. All of it.
That ongoing relationship.
Yeah.
That feels like where the real growth happens. Choosing that honesty again and again.
Indeed. It's a practice. So maybe as you go about your day from here, when you face the next challenge, the next demand, or just feel that familiar old impulse to tighten up, put on the smile and say, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'd like to leave you with just one final question, something to maybe carry with you, let it echo quietly, perhaps in the space between your breaths.
Okay.
What if your greatest strength was never really in desperately holding it all together, but actually in having the courage to let it all fall apart and trusting deep down that you would still be whole?
Find that answer, perhaps in your next breath, your next small moment of quiet truth, or maybe just in your next honest, simple, I don't know, that presence, that willingness to just be, that's where the path continues.